Hi and welcome back to Mr. Huyn's Inventor tutorials. So in this tutorial we'll be starting our project by creating the doorstop base. Now here's one I've already done earlier. Here we are. Nope, that's the tech drawing. This is the one I'm after. By the end of this tutorial we should be able to produce this object. Okay. It looks fairly simple, but there's a few steps involved and a few tips and tricks that I'm happy to share with you guys. But yes, this is what to expect when we finish this tutorial. Okay, so what you need to do this is look through your technical drawing booklet. You should have a technical drawing of this doorstop. It should look something like this. This is the one I created in Inventor, and it's been generated off the 3D model. Now I'll show you how to do that later in a separate tutorial when we get to the tech drawing component. But what I need you to have is this sheet, what looks like this sheet in front of you. So you can have the dimensions that we're going to use to model our doorstop base. Okay, I only have it open for that purpose. This is just a preview of what we'll do next time in another tutorial. For this tutorial, we're just going to create this in a 3D model. Okay, so I can close that, and we'll get started. So the first thing you got to do is, okay, you can either go to new here, or new here to create a new model. But first, I always like to check that my configuration is in millimeters and ISO. This is grayed out, so I know it is set as I wanted it to. I've got new. I got a standard. Make sure the unit's in millimeters. And I'm going to create my model. Okay. Once we get started, this is our workspace. This is the feature tree. It works similarly to, if you guys have used Photoshop or Illustrator, there's a history toolbar. It works similar to that. It logs every single sketch and feature that you do. And the cool thing about it is, though, you can go back in time to a feature or a sketch that you've done. You can edit that sketch and then update the model. Everything from that point onwards updates to reflect the changes you've made in the past. I'll go through that in a bit more detail when we get around to that. To get started on our sketch, top left corner, click on that, create 2D sketch. So all three models are derived from 2D sketches. So our first 2D sketch, we choose a plane we want to work in. I like to choose the XY plane. If you see in the bottom left corner as the plane directions X, Y, and Z, just out of habit, I like to use the XY plane. It's most logical for me anyway. Okay, in the middle of the screen is a yellow dot. That represents the 0, 0, 0 point, also known as the origin. So that's the center of our workspace. What I'm going to sketch is a rectangle. This is going to reflect the rectangle you guys get given in the workshop to create your doorstop base. And what I did is I clicked on that origin, and then I clicked somewhere out here. It doesn't have to be precise at the moment because we're going to reshape this rectangle to the exact sizes we need. So I just need to put a rectangle down. And the reason why I use that 0, 0 point origin as my start point is that I want to lock my rectangle down. I don't like my models floating around in space. I want to make sure I know where I start it and where to stop it. Okay, so my rectangle is done. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to dimension my rectangle. Now, check with your tech drawing sheet, the one in your tech drawing booklet. I'm going to dimension the first length. All you do is click on the line, lift it up, and we know that this is 150 millimeters long. So 150, tick it, or press OK, or press enter. Now it's out of zoom, so use the mouse zoom into place. You can click on it and pan. So it's 150 across. Same thing with this one. Click on that line, bring it across, click it to place, and I want that to be 19 millimeters high. So push 19, press enter. That gives me those two dimensions. Now, at the bottom here, you can see it says fully constrained. That's what I'm after. I want to make sure my sketch is fully constrained. I'm still in sketch mode because this button is still depressed, it's still colored. The way I can exit that, either press the escape button, or if it's in the dimension mode, right click and press OK. Yep. Okay. So once you're out of dimension mode, you can click on dimension, move it around, make it neater, and that's fine. To demonstrate how this works again, I'm going to delete this one, click on the 19 one, and I'm going to press delete. Deletes it. As you see on the bottom here, it says one dimension needed to constrain this box. And the best way to demonstrate that is if I just click on that edge. Actually, I can't move on. I have to click on this edge and move up and down. This has been constrained to be 150 millimeters wide, right? Or 150 millimeters long. So I haven't constrained this one yet. The way I do that is I have to put a dimension on there and that constrains it. So click on that, place it at 19. Another thing I wanted to mention is if you press the F8 key, the constraint icons pop up. Now these are automatically generated by the software. When you draw a rectangle, it assumes you're drawing a rectangle, so it gives you these parallel constraints, perpendicular constraints, and horizontal constraints that help you lock down your shape. You can manually add these in when you're drawing a shape. These constraints yourself, so you have coincidence, parallel, perpendicular, horizontal, vertical, symmetrical, or tangent. There's quite a few of them. Use the ones that you need. For now, I'm happy with this because it's fully constrained. If I click on an edge, it's not going to move anywhere. I'm going to go ahead and finish 2D sketch. So I'm happy with that. Either I go to this tick here, or I can go to this tick in the top right corner. Finish 2D sketch. And now I'm going to extrude that shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press extrude. It's going to highlight that view. I'm going to change my camera angle so it's easy for me to see. Right, so this window pops up. Sometimes you see it like this, right? I like to expand it. You can use this as well. It's exactly the same as this, but I like using this more. Personal preference. So what options do you have here? Profile shape. Yep, that's the one we've chosen, and it's taking that rectangle we drew as a profile. The output, either make it a solid, or it could be the surface. So this is if you do a surface. It creates the surface on the outside, but it leaves the inside hollow. Instead, we're going to do solid. So it's going to extrude the entire surface as a solid piece of timber. Okay, we want 40 mil. I've already done this before, so that's why it's saved as 40. And here you have some options as to how you want to extrude it. You can choose the direction you want to extrude it in. I like to use the mid-plane, symmetrical, because our doorstop wedge or doorstop base is going to be symmetrical in shape along this plane. I like to use this one. It's just good practice, especially if you're modeling something that's symmetrical. Later on, when you put into an assembly, it's easier to use that plane as a reference for attaching other things onto. So I will press OK, and here is our block of wood. It will look familiar to the one you used in the workshop room. Okay, our next step is to create to cut the wedge out, right? And the way we're going to cut the wedge out is, this is the other way we can create a 2D sketch. You saw the first way was to use a plane. The second way, we're going to sketch directly onto a surface. So if I select that surface, it gives me three options. Edit extrude, edit sketch, or create a new sketch. We're going to use this one, create a new sketch. The other way you can do it is you can right click that, and on the bottom it says new sketch. So we're sketching directly onto that surface. So this yellow rectangle is an offset from that particular face that we chose to create a sketch on. Now, it's there because we need to have a reference geometry where we can draw a new shape on. I'll quickly demonstrate. If I was to click on one of those lines and delete it, right, so now it's gone. It's only got 3 lines left. And I wanted to draw a line connected from that point to that point there. Let's just say that line there. This point won't snap to anything. There's nothing to snap to because that line doesn't exist. If I have to zoom in and have a look here, it's got no reference geometry to snap to, right? So that's why we need that offset line and not to delete them. What you can do though is you can turn to construction lines. I'll quickly show you what to do to accomplish that. But first, I'm going to press Ctrl Z to undo. Ctrl Z and Ctrl Y works in Inventor, so they're very handy. Make sure you use them. Ctrl Z. That line comes back. Okay. So these are my reference geometry. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to select all 4 lines and I'm going to turn to construction lines. So once they're construction lines, they become dotted lines. Now these dotted lines are reference geometry. You cannot extrude construction lines. They're there for reference geometry only. So now I'm going to create my wedge shape. So the triangle shape that we need to create our wedge. 3 lines, yep. I'm happy with that. Right click, okay. Okay, if I zoom in a bit more, right. I want to turn on my constraint icons to see what I'm doing, to make sure that my squares are yellow. That way I know that the triangle is a closed shape. We can't extrude, oh, you can extrude an open shape, but in this case we want to make sure that the shape is closed. Okay, so if I click these yellow triangles, these yellow squares, I can move these points in because the triangle is not constrained. The only point that is constrained is probably this corner here. Right? Because this corner is locked onto the corner from a reference geometry. Now, the way we constrain this triangle, as we here 2 dimensions needed, is we go to dimension. And now the first dimension we've constrained is this point here to this line here. So I clicked on the point, I clicked on the line, and it gives me my dimension arrows. Place it there, and we know from our drawing it has to be 60. So press 60, enter, and that's constrained that. So now there's 1 dimension left to constrain our triangle, and that dimension is this one here. So while I'm still in dimension mode, I'm going to click this point, I'll click the bottom line, and bring it out to the side. That's meant to be 5, press 5, press enter, and now we're fully constrained. This is what we're after. Fully constrained, right click, OK, exit dimension mode. I click and drag to test to make sure that nothing's moving. Only when I'm outside dimension mode I can reposition these dimensions to make them neater if I choose to. Okay, now that we're happy that the whole thing's fully constrained, I'm going to finish the sketch. Okay, so now we're going to go back to the extrude tool. But this time we're going to be cutting our extrusion, not extruding a solid, but removing material, not adding material. So in here you've got a couple of options up here. What we used before was the additive method. Additive. We're going to use the cut method. So this is the join, this is cut. We're going to be cutting. The distance is 40 because we've saved that from before. You can always change this if you needed to. So if I did 30, you can see what it looks like. So it doesn't go all the way through. I'm going to go 40. And instead of going distance, what I'll actually do is I'm going to go all. So if I select all, that direction, I want to choose this direction, it's going to extrude, cut through the whole material until it hits empty space. That's what I want. So I'm happy with this preview, it looks good, click OK, and there we have it. We've extrude cut our wedge shape out of our